In 1992, a camera is running in a room inside Kensington Palace. The woman sitting in front of it is the most photographed person in the world, but this time she's very plain. No makeup, no smile, no princess persona. There's just a microphone, a camera, and one question. Tell me. The woman starts talking. No one was ever supposed to see this footage. Diana did this knowing that, because the only thing she'd been told was, these recordings are just for the two of us. But that wasn't true. Today I'm going to tell you the story of those tapes, how and why they were filmed, whose hands they passed through, and why they stayed hidden for years. But here's the real point. A woman entrusted the hardest, saddest moments of her life to a camera, and that trust kept being stolen from her even years after her death. Autumn 1992. Diana's marriage isn't officially over, but it's already collapsed. Months earlier, Andrew Morton's book had been published, containing Diana's own account of bulimia, loneliness, and betrayal. The country was shocked. The palace watched what was unfolding with anxious eyes, not knowing what to do. Diana is wrestling with something too. She can't speak in her own voice. In front of cameras, she's stiff, insecure, her voice sometimes shaking. And now she has to get through this on her own. The royal family is no longer standing behind her. That's exactly when her personal trainer, Carolyn Brown, gives her a name, Peter Settelen, a former actor, now a voice coach. In the first session, Settelen sees just how frightened the woman in front of him is. The camera is on, but Diana can't speak. Her voice cuts out, her sentences trail off. Then an idea comes to him. You need to watch yourself. A plain room, a chair, a couch, a camera, the usual kind of setup. Outside, paparazzi and journalists chasing a story are waiting for her. Inside, it's just Diana and the one person sitting across from her, listening. From that moment on, the recording stopped being just a lesson and become a habit. From September 1992 to December 1993, about 18 months, this camera runs again and again in a room at Kensington Palace. Some of the recordings are just speech practice, but some aren't. At a certain point, that camera starts to feel like a confidant to Diana, and she begins speaking with all her hesitation stripped away. Nearly 50 hours of footage piles up, and in some of it, Diana is no longer practicing speech. She's talking about her marriage, about her childhood, about what happened between her and Charles, about how unbearably suffocating royal life had become, about how alone she felt. Settelen would later say in an interview, these recordings were meant only for the two of them. Diana spoke this freely, told everything without holding back, precisely because she believed the footage would never leave that room. So there's no filter, no princess mask. Just a 31-year-old woman, the most watched woman in the world, in the state she assumed no one would ever hear. Sometimes there's a steadiness in her voice. Sometimes she stops mid-sentence trying to work out what she's just said. Settelen asks simple questions. What did you feel then? And Diana starts telling him everything she's carried inside for years, the way you'd tell your most trusted friend. Nothing hidden, nothing skipped over. What began as an image coaching exercise for a princess starts to look, in the later recordings, like a therapy session. The sessions end. Settelen returns every tape to Diana. For a moment, the story seems to close there, but it doesn't. August 31st, 1997. Diana dies in a car crash in Paris, 36 years old. And from that moment, the tapes disappear somewhere inside the palace. No one knows where they are or whose hands they're in. Until 2001. Scotland Yard raids the home of Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell. The reason is a theft investigation. Hundreds of the late princess's personal belongings are found in Burrell's house, And among those belongings, something turns up that shocks everyone: the tape Settelen had filmed. The footage carrying Diana's most private confessions is now in the hands of the police as evidence in a theft case. In 2002, Burrell goes on trial. The charge is serious: stealing hundreds of items belonging to Diana. The evidence is so strong that everyone assumes a conviction is certain, but something happens with the case that no one saw coming. Just before Burrell is due to testify, a mysterious meeting takes place involving the palace. It emerges that the Queen has remembered a conversation she once had with Burrell years earlier. That recollection invalidates part of the evidence the prosecution is relying on. The case collapses on public interest grounds. Burrell walks free. But the real question still hangs in the air: what exactly did the Queen remember, when, and why? That question has never been fully answered. Over 9 days of hearings, the courtroom was packed. Reporters waited in the corridors every day, and a new theory emerged with every recess. Then that phone call came, a meeting was held, and right in front of everyone, the case simply evaporated. Some believe justice was done. Others believe the palace made sure it happened this way to protect its own secrets. The truth still isn't fully clear. Burrell goes free, but the tapes are no longer secret, and now a new fight begins. Who do these recordings belong to? Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, says the tapes are part of the family's legacy and should be kept from the public. But the legal reality is far colder. The person who recorded the footage was Settelen, and the copyright belongs to him. In 2004, the court delivers its ruling. The tapes legally belong to Settelen, and the footage once filmed as "just for the two of us" now becomes property in someone else's hands, its fate decided by someone else's judgment. That same year, 2004, excerpts from the tapes air on an American television program. They don't air in Britain because of fears over the courts and public backlash. But in America, there's no obstacle at all. And for the first time, the world watches Diana not as a royal figure trailing the shadow of the crown, but as an ordinary woman. In that footage, Diana talks about her marriage, about being betrayed, about the coldness of the royal family. At times, you can hear the hurt and sadness in her voice. For viewers, this doesn't feel like a documentary. It feels like the pages of a private diary, opened without permission. Even years later, British broadcasters are still afraid to air this footage. The reason is simple: is this a privacy violation or a historical document? No one can give a clear answer. Until 2017, the 20th anniversary of Diana's death. Channel 4 decides to air these excerpts in Britain for the first time in a documentary called Diana in Her Own Words. The backlash is instant. Diana's old friends, people close to the palace, even some journalists call it a betrayal. The channel's defense is this: it's now an important historical source. But the thing everyone ends up talking about most is this: most of what's in the tapes was already known. Diana's marriage, her unhappiness, her conflict with the monarchy. These were already established facts. So what shook people so much then? It wasn't the information, it was the tone of voice. A sentence read in a book and the same words spoken while looking someone in the eye are not the same thing. In the tapes, people saw Diana not as a legend, but as a woman who died before she even turned 40, still trying to tell her own story. And maybe that's exactly where the real irony lies. Diana spent her whole life fighting to make her own voice heard. She kept trying to tell the press, the palace, everyone, "This is my real story." Films and TV series have kept returning to that detail ever since. In the end, her voice really was heard. But not by her own choice. It happened through a raid, a court case, a copyright ruling, and a broadcaster's decision. That camera is still running. Only who's watching has changed. And I'll leave you with this: Can a person's most private moments be opened up to everyone, years after their death, under the name of historical record? Or does some silence deserve to be protected even after its owner is gone? Diana could never answer that question because no one ever asked her. That tape is still sitting somewhere in an archive. Maybe one day it will surface again in a documentary, or maybe it will just stay locked away somewhere. But this much we know. In 1992, in a small room inside that palace, a woman spoke, believing no one would ever hear her. And that conversation, long after its owner's death, is still living on, still in someone else's hands, still subject to someone else's decision. Maybe that's the price of truly knowing someone, hearing at the loudest possible volume the moment they were meant to keep silent.